So I must tell you, when I went back to swimming and I did Midma was very fearful.
Now, as a beginner, I'm someone who wants to do the English Channel, Robben Island, and all that. How do I start?
It is very windy in the Drakensberg.
Welcome to From the Start Line with Larumbe, and today I am so excited because I have my coach here, my swimming coach here, Swimali Portia, and I am going to let you introduce yourself because I just know you as Swimali Portia, like it's your name and surname.
Yes, Portia is my name, but my full names are Mathutwana, Portia, Mamello, Mokoena. So I chose and went with the name Portia because it's appealing to everybody and it can be used internationally as well. Mathutwana comes from my paternal side of the family. Mamello is my maternal side of the family. And then Portia was used for schooling and you know those English names that we had to have within the passport. And then obviously my surname is Mokoena.
Okay, yes. Within the passport or ID?
ID.
Oh, ID, okay, yeah.
ID, passport, because we want to enter international shores at some point.
Yes, perfect. Okay, a bit more about who Portia is. Who's Portia and how did we end up Portia comfortable in the water?
So me growing up, I was born in Togoza and grew up in Vosloorus. Those are two townships in Ekurhuleni. So my parents emigrated from the Free State. They both were from a small town in Bethlehem, and then they emigrated to Gauteng, where my mom became a worker at the factories, and then my dad was a taxi driver, and he transitioned into a shop owner. And then from there, we were just raised working in the shop. So my whole family were just hard workers. And then during our school years, we went to very good schools because of the hard work that my parents did. They were able to afford us to go to what we dubbed then multiracial schools. We still stayed in the township, but we were able to commute using scholar transport through to schools. So this one multiracial school that I went to had a big body of water, which was the first time I came across it, which was a swimming pool. So like any ordinary child, I got excited, I ran, I jumped, not realizing, this thing has got a deep end or a shallow end, and I just went smack bang in, and I struggled, and I went under, and I couldn't bring myself up or bring myself to stability in order to stand, and I realized this thing has no end. Until one of the teachers jumped in and had to rescue me. So that was my first drowning experience. And then as I went during the school years, there was an excursion.
How old were you when that happened?
I was in grade 2.
Oh,
I was 7 years old.
Okay.
And then my second excursion, I was at Majorette at the school. And we went on a school trip. And towards the end of the school trip, the teachers decided to take us out to the beach. Never seen a beach in my life before. I did the same thing. I ran, I followed the others that were running into the beach, feeling so confident because they were also very confident, only realizing this thing is pulling me deeper and deeper into the ocean where I'm like losing control. And I also experienced my second drowning experience, and then one of the older kids happened to see me and then got me back to shore. So with water, those are my two struggles. And this was a nightmare for my parents, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
Having to hear that their child is experiencing such traumas at school with regards to water. And then that's when they spoke to one of the teachers to try see if they can get me into a program where they were able to teach me on how to know what water is and how to be able to survive in it. And I think that's where my relationship with swimming started. I competed relatively at school, but I still struggled, and there were many barriers that kept me from excelling to the point where I wanted to excel in order to be like a competitive athlete or belong to the school swim team. Because I was commuting to school using scholar transport, I could not stay longer after school in order to partake in, the swim team trainings or the exercises that they offered before school hours or after school hours, because I had to leave when all my other peers within the school transport system left. My parents were both working hard. They could not afford or have the time to be able to take me to school to, partake in my favorite sport. So I was just relatively participating to some degree until I became an adult. But because of life distractions and what they wanted for me, I had to fall within what all the other black kids within my community were. I had to find a job within the corporate sector. But even working in that corporate sector and having kids later, it still felt as if something was still missing in my life. And then that's when I decided to try swimming again and embark on it. And then I started training again, and I came across a girl I used to go to school with by the name of Portia Mathutwana's page on Facebook. And that's how usually we reconnected after losing contact with each other. When Facebook came around, we connected with old friends and old schoolmates. And Mpo's page, there was a post where her and one of her friends went to Midmar. And I was like, oh, is that still a thing? And seeing her as a black female with her friend as well, being able to train and do Midmar, I'm like, let me make this a goal. And that's how I transitioned back into open water. And once I did my first Midmar, I then told myself, look, I really need to get myself into and understand how this industry works. Because the same barriers that prevented me from wanting to maybe pursue or know about different careers that you can get in aquatics is the same barrier that some of our kids in underserved areas like the townships I grew up in don't have access to this. So that's how I then decided to study for Learn to Swim qualification and be able to advocate and see if swimming can be taken seriously and swimming can become a part of some of the schooling systems or the communities, with especially the ones that I come from. Yeah. And that's how I got into back into swimming, and that's how the SwimSA Portia brand came about.
Oh, that's so interesting. I'm just trying to imagine when I had panic in the water. I didn't want to go back in. So I think as a 7-year-old jumping into water, jumping into the ocean, all those things, there wasn't a point where you're like, no, actually, I almost died. I'm not doing this again.
No.
Or did your young man say, oh, okay, that was exciting. I can improve on that.
I was always driven. I always knew that I wanted to do something that is not seen as normal in the eyes of everybody. I remember my dad, growing up, he also did something out of the ordinary that most black men would not do in those ages. Instead of running like most of my uncles did or play soccer like most of my uncles did, he embarked on wanting to learn something called golf. And everybody frowned upon him. I know the conversations that you would have with his brothers. Like, why are you walking around with sticks? Sticks that you can't even carry on your bag. You have to put these things in the boot. And he tried so hard to make them understand the game of golf, but he failed. Because even when he tried to interest the family in watching it on television, everybody would just brush him to the side. And it was like, no, this thing is boring. It takes the whole day. You're just watching people walking around on a green lawn. Unlike the action-packed football that there is and that brings camaraderie and family together. So, so I think for me, I always looked up to him and wanted to be the kind of person that was... what you call like the black sheep of the family that always stood out and did something different that not a lot of people understood. But if you put your mind to it and at a later stage, you would be able to make people see the end of the light that not everybody travels the same path, but we all travel different paths. And I've always considered myself as a risk taker as well. Just like with water, especially open water, it is a risk that, you look forward to taking. But you plan. It's called, risk management in a form. Because you can't go swim a mile without actually training for it. So you have to be physically ready and you have to be mindfully ready. So whatever risk that you do plan to take, you have to plan for it. Everybody has a risk in their life. I mean, you could choose, look, I'm not going to run comrades because I don't want to break my legs or, things like that. Or you can take a risk and say that, no, I'm just going to be a couch potato and watch Netflix all day. I mean, your risk is having a heart attack within the first couple of years.
But my risk with comrades is I break my leg, but I'm still breathing fine.
Yes.
With water, which is something I want us to talk a bit more about, the fear of water. What causes that? Because I keep talking about my panic experience because it's something so foreign. I had never experienced it before. Got into the water 100 meters in. My heart started beating fast. I started hearing sounds in the water. Everything was just happening so fast. What causes that? So I get what you're saying about comrades of breaking your leg. I'm breaking my leg, but I'm still breathing fine. In water, the something going wrong is... The going wrong part can go very wrong. So what causes that fear in your experience, and what are some of the things you've seen in that space? People panicking. I don't want to ask if anyone has died in your care or something along those lines. But what causes that fear? Let's talk more about the fear of, especially open waters. You get people that can get into the pool, but they can't. They just don't want to get into the water. I don't want anything touching my leg. Yeah, so what causes the fear?
And overthinking of many things. So I think the fear will always be there. But the number one thing that comes to mind is the fact that you cannot control or you run out of breath. The minute you are unable to breathe, you feel like you suffocate. And that feeling of suffocation is the one thing that we all fear, because now you feel as if a little bit of life is slipping out from you that you cannot control and bring back. I'll tell you my first experience with drowning when I went into our school pool and I was just constantly submerging. When I came up, I struggled to gasp for air. And then obviously when you go underwater, because you don't know how to handle or how to breathe, you just see yourself in a state of panic and you are not getting enough oxygen or enough air in order to survive down there. So I think the voices that you were hearing obviously was you trying to scream within your inner self, and obviously grasping for air and things like that. The water body is the most powerful element of nature. It's somewhere where us as humans have no control of. Here on land, you're able to sit, you're able to stand, gravity, stability. But on land, I mean, in the water, there's no sense of stability. Even when you are treading water and you're comfortable and you're catching air, anything can happen. You're still not stable. The minute you lose the use of your legs or use of your arms, how then are you going to be able to tread or keep afloat without floating? So the fear will always be there. It's just learning how to move with it. It is a mind game or a mindset thing. The fear of water, especially open water, will always be there. Even professional swimmers or people that have been swimming for a long time, like myself, every time you get into a body of water, the fear will always be there. It does not go away.
Do you still get panic sometimes? I know that you swim a lot in open waters. Do you ever get to prime view? Do you swim alone firstly?
No.
So if you get to prime view and there's no one else, you're not getting into the water? Or...
So at prime view, you can go into the water because there's lifeguards there. So there's always a safety measure. You don't necessarily have to be with people in the body of water. But the minute you know that you've brought a tag, the facilitators or the lifeguards at prime, they already know that there's someone in the water. And visibility helps for them to see that there is someone in the water. So you always have to wear a bright cap or have a safety buoy so that they know that, okay, that bright color that's in the water that's moving is definitely a swimmer that's going on their own course. Another community that I belong to, which is out in Benoni as well, we do have a WhatsApp group that we communicate on daily as to who's going out for a swim. And if anyone is out there, they should let the group know so that we know that there was someone in the water as well. And it's usually just because it's a boat club, it's usually just before the boats come out. Because the boats come out from about 7 a.m. in the morning.
Just on the fear of water, I have this thing when I get in, I cannot get into the water when there's no people around. So in open water, someone needs to be in the water with me. Because even if I can see you there, for some reason, there's just this fear I can't get over. And then in the pool, they don't need to be in the water, but I need to see that there are people watching me in the water. So at gym, I always make sure there's people, because our gym has the treadmill facing the pool. So I need to make sure that there's either someone on the treadmill or on the bike. Is that also, what causes that? How can I overcome that? And also just to people who are starting to swim, who have the same fear, how can they get over that? How can they manage that?
So for people that are starting to swim, you have to start with small steps. You have to start, obviously, with pool training before you can start with any open water training. And then when you do transition into open water, I would advise you to start within a small body of ocean water, meaning that it can be shallow, not too deep as well. And start with an open water that doesn't have a lot of activity, like not too many fishes or too many different species that could throw you off as well.
So it's not just fish that's in that water. Okay, you are not making this any simpler for me.
Well, the man-made ones, like your Prime View and Ibote, at least there are not a lot of different types of species, but you would find like different types of fishes, which are very harmless. And then ducks as well, which are very harmless. But then the other types of open water, the natural ones, where you find like in the Drakensberg or Mahuba's Kloof and so forth, there you'd find different species. You'd find bigger frogs, you'd find... turtles, you'd find brown snakes, which are harmless. And then also the bigger types of open water, which is your oceans, there's endless.
Do you see those things in the water? If you swim in the ocean, do you see life?
Yes.
Life in there?
Yes.
Even when you do your 70.3, there's life in the water. Yes. I know that it's there, but I've never actually thought about that to say.
So it does depend on how deep enough you go into the water. Like your 70.3 or your Ironmans, you would obviously start from shore and swim in and then swim back to shore. So your summits, like your Robben Islands, where you swim from one island back onto land, where you swim across, and it's much deeper into the ocean. Yes, so there's more there life. You'd see live, because when I did my swim, there were seals that were swimming right next to me, and I would advise try not to touch them because they bite just like dogs. There were jellyfishes as well. I was advised to try and avoid them as well, because once you get stung by a jellyfish, it throws you off and you become quite dizzy. And then I also had to pack at least some, what you call allergex. Yes, but I was quite afraid to use the allergex, because I know even when I'm not doing any activities, if I take an allergex, it just drowses me off. Yeah. So I was considering always as to if I now become drowsy, how am I going to finish my swim?
Which swim was this? The Robben Island one?
Yes.
Oh,
this was the
how
Robben
was
Island
that?
swim.
Tell us a bit more about that. How long is it?
It took me 3 hours, 40 minutes.
What's the
I
distance?
did a distance of 7.4 kilometers.
Shoo. Okay, 7.4 kilometers, 3 hours. When I'm on my bike, I know that I can reach for my squeeze bottle, take it out of my bike, drink, put it back on. How does it work when you're swimming?
So there, yes, you are alone in the ocean, but you are accompanied by a skipper on a boat.
Oh, okay.
So the skipper on the boat is the one that helps navigate your route, in terms of keeping you away from strong currents so that you can have a smooth sailing swim back to shore. And then your skipper is the one that carries your feed as well. Because it's considered not a longish distance, I only drank liquids during the course. I did pack a banana, but I didn't. I think my mouth was too salty for me to be able to bite into the banana. So, yes, so in the morning I took some gels and I had some oats. So I was pretty full, or lightly fueled up. And then my drinks were just tea with lemon and honey and water with a little bit of creatine and some protein mixes. So it was just light liquids that carried me throughout, yeah.
And what time does the swim start? Because I think I've been seeing videos only now when you mentioned the Robben Island route, where I see people going out very early in the morning. And how does it work? Is it early morning or late evening?
Early morning.
What time did you start your swim?
So I started my swim like at 5 a.m. Yeah, in the morning, and I was done by like 9.
This is fascinating. Sharks. It's Robben Island, deep within. How does the shark thing work? Is there a breathing shark community? Don't come out. Is there someone keeping them out? Is there a device that monitors? How does that work? How are you comfortable in the water knowing that you're so far from shore?
So I must tell you, when I went back to swimming and I did Midma was very fearful for me, considering that there's a whole lot of people swimming and the stories that you hear from previous swimmers as well, that it's just a large crowd taking off at the same time. You get swimmers that kick you in the face or kick you in the chest, and it's up to you whether you proceed or not. And after a couple of experiences, yes, you've got the drive to want to do more and other swims that they kept talking about. And then when I really got into the industry and started working at the Wahoo Aquatic Center, and I met other coaches and I met other swimmers. And then they started speaking about Robben Island and, cold water swimming. I'm like, is that a thing? And then, I got introduced to the community. And then one of the coaches did it. I'm like, and I remember when she came back, I made her sit down and I grilled her with questions. I'm like, how would you do that? Why would you put your body through all of that pain for so many hours? And why would you swim in an ocean knowing that there's sharks and anything that can attack you? And then she explained that, no, with the skipper that you book with, obviously their boats have like radar that signals and keeps the sharks away. And, I'm like, oh, that's very interesting. But then what if on that day that radar is not working or the battery...
That's exactly what I'm thinking right now. Like, a lot of things can go wrong.
I'm thinking, I've got kids. I've got a family to look after. I can't put myself at risk like that. And that is the risk I was talking about earlier on. That it's all about planning. It's all about understanding the kind of environment that you're going or entering yourself into. So I had to thoroughly prepare. I had to thoroughly do my research, watch and read interviews or stories from previous swimmers that have done it. And it turns out it's an entire community, it's an entire thing in the Cape and around the world to be able to do it. I only realized after I did my discoveries about the Robben Island swim that there's other swims like the English Channel, which are more brutal. So I thought, it's just the Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean. Yes, there's sharks. Sharks can be, guided away. And then on the day that I did the swim, it turns out, from what we know about sharks roaming around that entire side of the Atlantic, it turns out the sharks are always on the one side of the ocean, which is, Cape Town on the side of the Muizenberg area and that other side, and never on the Bloberg side. So the side that we were swimming is completely shark-free. Okay. So that also at least put me at ease a bit in order to be able to do it. But regardless of knowing that the most dangerous creatures are not near you, it's still very scary. So I chose to move along with that fear. And I swam with it, still being fearful. Sure. And it's completely dark because, you know, when you grow up and never been exposed, by the way, that was my first ocean swim. I've never swum in the ocean before. We always see beautiful pictures of people swimming in the ocean and how surreal and pretty it is underneath the ocean. When I did that Robben Island swim, it was quite scary because the water was dark and you could not see underneath you or what's going on there.
Even after sunrise?
Even after sunrise. Even after sunrise.
Did you have anything touching your feet? Touching you?
No. Nothing touching me. But except the coral reefs that were floating on top of the ocean.
Oh, okay.
Yes, because there's a lot of those close to the Robben Island itself. So when we started the swim, I had to navigate through all of that reef in order to get, you know,
to the
some ocean and just swim through. But I think the darkness and the blackness, and also there was litter, which is another thing that broke my heart almost completely, that how can such a big body of water be exposed to litter that you can literally see that this is caused by a man, you know, litter that can, you know, travel from all the way from Cape Town onto the island, because the island, there's not much residents living on the island except obviously the workers that work for the island, you know, because there's no prisoners anymore.
Yeah.
It's just people there that are just looking after the island, which is now a museum. So I was quietly very, very disappointed. And also when I later inquired as to why the sea is so dark and black, obviously they said it's from the fuels and the engines from the ships that obviously cross onto and, you know, do the shipping routes and stuff.
Congratulations on doing the Robben Island route.
Thank you.
It sounds like it was exciting. Now, as a beginner, I'm someone who wants to do the English Channel, Robben Island and all that. How do I start? Let's say it's someone that hasn't started swimming at all, because the point of this conversations is to get people into the sports. And as you know, as Black people, it's not something that we're exposed to. I mean, I'm from Hamakuya, a village far north. You're not even allowed to get into the water. Whether it's a river or any water, you should not be getting into any water. How do I start? I'm a beginner. I haven't, and I'm at my big age. So there's also that. So what's your advice in terms of people who are starting off?
Girl, me and you both are both inland people. So like I said, you have to start small. I did a lot of my training in the pool, which the training and the training sets that you do get from a coach the pool training is just to build strength and muscle. Because the body of water in a pool and the body of water in the ocean are two completely different things. The swimming in a pool feels much lighter, but swimming in the ocean is much more heavier. And pool water is standstill. Ocean water is constantly moving. So you'll as you are swimming and experiencing different bodies of water, you would realize how different water moves. And that's why it's important. And we also, as coaches, try to let swimmer know that always try feel yourself move in the water. And that's how it becomes easier for you to navigate yourself moving through the water. In moving water, you later only realize that you have to always catch the current as you move through the water. Depending on what kind of level of current, there's light currents, strong currents. That's why also when you do the Robben Island swim, they advise you that, look, we are going to let you know which window gives you the perfect conditions for swimming. Yeah. Because you can't just give you a date like you're going on March 24th. The weather conditions will determine the day you it is favorable for you to swim or not. That's why it's important to get a skipper. So starting, yes, pool training is important. And then also open water is important, especially if you are inland. If you are coastal, great. You've got the ocean to your advantage in order to train on a weekly basis. But if you're inland like myself and yourself, then you'd have to make use of Prime View. You'll have to make use of Ibutse if you're from Gauteng. When you are training as well, it is important to take part in different open water events, so that it can tell you on your improvements in terms of time. And then you start the long distances. So if you are starting, let's say, with 500-meter swims, it's good to build up every 2 weeks. Build up your distance. Go from 500 to 7 to 1,000 to eventually 3 or 4 kilometers within a week. The most toughest swim that I did whilst training for it was one in the Drakensberg called the Sterfontein swim.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think every open water swimmer or every open water aspirant swimmer should do that swim. The conditions there, I believe, are much tougher than the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh.
Yes, the water is cold. It is very windy in the Drakensberg. I think because it's a mountainous area and the altitudes are quite higher than all the other dams that we know of in Gauteng or in the Midlands. So it's a good training ground for anyone that wants to go compete or swim in the ocean.
What distances do they have? I'm already interested.
So they've got the mile, which is a 1.6, and then they've got the 3 kilometer, which is their longest distance.
So if it's windy, then the water is very choppy.
Yes.
Yes. The last time I swam in choppy waters, I drank half of that damn water.
Girl, you will drink that water. You will be slapped on your cheek, right and left by that water. By the time you come out, you will look back at that water and ask, what was that? What was that? What is this woman that just, woke me up from reality?
And with that, we drink a lot of water. Does that water, I've drank a lot of water, I haven't been sick, but is there a certain amount that you drink that can make you sick? Or what are the dangers of drinking the pool water wherever we swim in? Because there's never been a swim where I managed to keep the water out of my mouth. Even if I'm not drinking it, just like slightly come in and, what are the dangers around that?
So there's not really much danger because all water that is considered swimmable should be first and foremost tested.
Was Sterfontein, Robben Island?
Yes. It is at most important that it is tested because besides drinking the water, if the water is not up to standard, it could have a bad reaction onto your skin as well. Because some of the open water swims are done what we call skinless, which is just a costume. But some triathletes obviously wear tri-suits.
Yeah, we are about tri-suits, some
and wetsuits.
Yeah.
So that still covers your body, but it doesn't cover your entire body. So if your body reacts or if chafes, that means that the water quality within that dam is not really favorable or safe. Some dams where you do swim and you drink the water, it could react badly or give you some kind of poisoning within the system. But that's all treatable. I don't think it's anything fatal at all. But any body of water, especially open water, that is deemed swimmable should be tested.
Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think I've ever seen people swimmers with wetsuits on. So I know with triathletes, most of the time we have our wetsuits on, and also there's requirements around the temperature of the water. That if the water is below this temperature, you have to wear a wetsuit. Sterkfontein, do you do it? I know Midma Mile. I've never seen anyone at Midma Mile with the wetsuit. I'm not sure if maybe it's because it's warmer, but Sterkfontein, you mentioned that it's cold waters, right? Do you go there with a wetsuit? Do people go there with wetsuits?
Some do, but with the events around mile swimming, they allow wetsuits. However, you don't get a podium finish if you're wearing a wetsuit. So that's why most swimmers prefer not to swim with a wetsuit, because at the end of the day, it is a race. But if you're not like a complete athlete like myself, you just go there to swim your own race and chase your own time, not necessarily chasing a podium finish. Yeah, so it's really up to you, but most swimmers don't wear wetsuits. Swimming, I wouldn't say swimming is an inexpensive sport, but I think with regards to open swimming, they want to make it inclusive for everybody. So if you had to say that a wetsuit is mandatory, it will become very, very unaffordable for a lot of people to be able to partake in.
Yeah.
Because wetsuits do not come cheap at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the cheapest brand new one ranges from about 6,000 and going up.
Yeah.
So
I bought a wetsuit. I've lost weight. It doesn't fit me anymore. I'm stressed. I'm going to wear that wetsuit. So when you see me out at a race in
and
a
that
wetsuit,
thing does not stretch, eh?
It doesn't. It doesn't, just getting it on. But I think it helps a lot. The reason why they don't want, why you can't get podium finish in a wetsuit, is it because it gives you a little help?
It's very buoyant.
Okay, that would make
You
sense.
can't sink wearing that thing.
Coming to the cost of swimming. I know the cost of triathlon. Hey, like Ileborile said, she's like, you find out every day. Your bank balances finds out every day that actually this is expensive. I'm starting off, what costs are we looking at as a new swimmer, someone who's never been in water?
So at a cost, I would say with a wetsuit, about 7 to 10.
Okay.
Depending on your preferences.
Okay, without the wetsuit. Now, what
Without the
gears am I
wetsuit,
buying?
less than 2,000.
Less than 2,000.
Yeah.
And what would I be buying on
So for pool training, you definitely need fins. You definitely need a pair of goggles. You definitely need paddles
what are
that you would put on your hands in order to use for strength training on the arms. Because I don't know if a lot of coaches would argue with me. When you are swimming, most of the work comes from your arms and not necessarily from your kicking. So you would want to get pedals in order to build that strength in your arms. Yes.
Yeah, and with...
Because you are pulling a lot.
Yeah, and with triathlon, you want to save your legs because they must still cycle and they must still run. So yeah, so I promise when I come back to the pool, I'll make sure my arms are very strong.
And you can see it. I mean, with professional swimmers or people that have been swimming a lot, except me, they've got square shoulders.
Yes.
So their upper body is
that.
the one that's mainly built rather than their lower body. Yeah.
Strength exercise, is that necessary if I'm swimming? Because I hear people saying, no, swimming works out on all your body parts. So are there any exercises outside swimming that I do to make myself a stronger swimmer?
Yes. Weight lifting, and not necessarily lifting weights, but you can use your own body weight in terms of doing push-ups or press-ups and things like that on the floor.
Okay. I want us to talk more about SwimSA Portia. How long have you been operating for? Yeah, how long have you been operating for as SwimSA Portia?
As SwimSA Portia, we've started operating from 2022. Before then, there were a couple of projects that we did, but they didn't launch or were not solid enough. So in 2022, when I was completely into the swimming, I started working at Wahoo. And whilst at Wahoo, that's when I started building the brand as Swimmer Portia, being identified as myself and doing a couple of swims. It wasn't clear as to what direction I wanted to take. I went the same route as everybody else. I started a small swim school in Boksburg in Parkrand, where I'd be able to teach like a small group of people. It was very intimate at that time. I remember one of my best friends, who's now late, had said that, you know, you like swimming so much, even when we come to your house. We want to swim, and you'd always want to be in the water, and you'd grab someone's child who's visiting you and they do not know to swim. It's like, you know me, but you can't swim. Come here. This cannot be. You know, even with my family, it was that type of thing. So, you know, I cannot be surrounded by people that I know, or children that I know, and not be able to pass on or share the skill that I have. It does not sit well with me. It becomes very impossible. And then from that, she said, you know, you could take this and make it so much bigger and share it with people that don't necessarily know you, with a bigger community. There is a need. And then that's how I kind of stemmed back to my childhood as well. That I've always seen this need, and now I really need to know how I'm going to dig into it and how I'm going to reach the masses. And that's how Swimmer Portia also came about, because, you know, when I started reading and doing the research about the numbers of people that do drown. And even now, Lalu, this is the number that keeps me awake at night. You know, that last year there was 1,477 people that died from drowning alone in South Africa. And I could have been one of those people years ago. But, you know, I survived. And let me try help reduce this number, because out of this number, most people that are most vulnerable are 14 years and younger and come from underserved communities inland. Not even people that are coastal, people that are inland. Because a small body of water, like a bucket of water that a toddler can come across and accidentally fall into that bucket of water, or a bathtub full of water that maybe the parent did not see the child run to. You know, anything can happen, and drowning takes a split second for it to happen. So I needed to be able to go out there and be able to educate the masses in terms of the water safety tips they could be aware of and, you know, may consider it of. And number one from that list was learning how to swim. And obviously when I did my research and went into municipality offices and went into church communities to find out how we can get our people to learn how to swim and understand water. That was the challenge, because there is a lot of us. I'm passionate about going into churches because a lot of our spiritual African churches go into streams and rivers and conduct baptisms there and spiritual cleansing there. And there's a lot of drowning incidents that are not actually reported. So that 1,477 is actually an incorrect number. It could actually lead up to more than 2,000 people that are affected by drowning because of the statistics that are not recorded as drowning statistics. Because the minute the case gets reported to the police station, it's just reported as a fatal accident and not necessarily a drowning accident. So these are the things that we still need to do work on and embark on in terms of getting the correct statistics. Where are these incidents happening the most, and how can we get, awareness driven and assistance in terms of getting maybe, like for example, I gave you with the churches, maybe getting the church leader equipped with Learn to Swim. And then the church leader being able to help the rest of his or her followers in order to equip them with those kind of skills.
I'm just thinking now of where I come from. There isn't a swimming pool, or there isn't swimming lessons, but in Thohoyandou, in town, there's actually a lady, I think she's called Kadzi Swimming School or something like that. She has a swimming pool, a kiddie swimming pool, and a larger one. She gives lessons there. So that's actually interesting to see that there's more and more people in isolated inland areas that are actually willing to teach people how to swim. What's the correct age? Because with our generation, my kids, are more exposed and they can learn to swim earlier, what age would you recommend that kids start swimming to avoid and eventually bring down the number that you were just talking about?
So it's definitely from 3 years or as early as 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months to 3 years, water safety is vital. The kids don't necessarily learn how to swim in strokes from those ages, but they do learn how to float and how to be able to save themselves or get themselves out of a dangerous situation. I gave you an example earlier with the bathtub. So if a child falls into a bathtub, they will know how to be able, most probably not to stay down without breathing, but flip themselves over into a floating state where they're able to stay and catch air and then shout and call for help. And then from 3 years and up, that's where the mobility of a child starts getting strong, right? They're able to walk, run, do different things. That's how then we're able to teach them different strokes and different movements through water. And that's how you'll gradually be able to swim.
Okay, so what age group do you take? What age group does SwimSA Portia take?
So we take from 3 years.
3 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
We take from 3 years.
Where are you based?
So we're based in Boksburg and we're based at the Wahoo Aquatic Center in Sunninghill. So that's where we conduct our lessons.
And I heard you mention Prime View as well?
Yes. So the open water element, we assist at Prime View, we do Ibodze, and, we want to embark on other bodies of water. There's Bass Lake as well that we travel down to. So the whole idea eventually will be able to create like a movement where we're able to send kids from around South Africa to various swimming schools that are closest to them or swimming pools that are closest to them where they're able to learn the skill. So not necessarily that it's only offered by SwimSA Portia, but we want to create a movement and we want to launch product merchandise where the portion of the products will go towards, let's say we identify a school in Thohoyandou, like this school is closest to Katsi swimming school.
Yeah.
So Katsi, there's 10 kids. Take those 10 kids. These are the funds. Give them, skill them with those swimming lessons that they need in order to be able to survive. And the youth, it's also very important that we get the youth involved as well, not necessarily to learn the skill alone, but to know that there are career opportunities within aquatics as a whole as well. Career opportunities that they did not think maybe they have a choice in.
Yeah.
A child growing up in Thohoyandou could think that, most probably when I grow up, I just need to be a farmer or go into agriculture because I'm just surrounded by land. But not necessarily knowing that if I learn how to swim, there's opportunities for me to become a scuba diver and I could become a marine biologist, which are things that I never thought about. And this could give me the opportunity to go to the ocean. Most probably I've never even seen the ocean, of being to the ocean. And it just opens up a whole, range of doors and opportunities for them.
Yeah. And thank you for, I'm realizing as we're talking, thank you for making this topic wider than I thought. Because to me, it's just like, it's open water swimming, what could be the fears? But now as you get into it and explain about the different size frogs in the water, it almost prepares your mind to say, okay, if I'm getting into the water, these are the dangers I need to look out for.
Yes.
This is fears that I could encounter, and I really, really hope people watching are able to take that away to say it's possible to swim. Because I know there's another lady on TikTok who also does, I think, Black Mermaid. She does like deep diving. I'm like, this is so interesting.
Yeah, she does free diving.
She has a whole career around that.
Yes.
And I was just fascinated by that.
And she also, if you listen to her story as well, she was fearful of water. I mean, she says, like many of us, grew up being told stories on how to stay away from certain bodies of water because there was creatures down there.
I'm from Venda and there's certain places you shouldn't even go into.
We don't go in there or you'll never come out. I mean, our parents also did not understand water then. So they were scared themselves as to, if I allow my kids to go there, if they are stuck in there, how am I going to be able to help them out? So because they did not understand, and now we have the opportunity to understand and know what is swimmable and a place that is not swimmable. And then that's how it's easier for us to walk along with the fear in order to be able to mitigate and go in.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation.
You're welcome.
I really enjoyed it.
I know, but there's more to unpack, eh?
There is more, and we're running out of time. So I just want to know, do you have any last words that you want to say for people starting off, for people fearful of water, parents who are considering taking their kids to start swimming? Any advice for anyone doing their swimming?
So for fearful open waters, the fear will always be there. It's just learning how to move along with the fear. It's a mind game. As much as you are physically working to be stronger, you also have to work on the mental part as well in order to prepare yourself. It's all about planning. It's all about proper preparedness. And once you are strong mindfully and physically, anything is possible for you. And then to parents as well, start your kids young. And when you have started them into swimming, get involved as well. Know how the industry or the sport works in order to encourage your little ones to pursue different options or different careers. You may never know. You might have an Olympian in your house.
Yeah. A whole marine biology. Yeah. So, yeah. Thank you, Portia.
You're welcome.
And
good luck on your journey as well, being a triathlete.
Yo,
Hope to see you in the ocean very soon.
Yeah, no. with the dolphins and sharks and everything. But thank you so much. And as you know, this podcast is to help me get to the start line of Ironman. Soon, someday. Soon might be 2 years, 5 years. But yeah, thank you for all the tips that you've given. Thank you for taking your time to come and join us.
You're welcome.
And
anytime.
Hopefully we'll have you back after you swim the English Channel.
Yes.
Thank you. From the start line with Larumbe, thank you for being here, and see you at the start line.